Thank you, everyone. There's a lot that went on in that demo that's important to highlight. So not only sharing data between systems while collaborating, but having the ability to elevate to voice channels all across the Symphony platform is truly powerful. And it's accessible to me wherever I am, and that's important. I'm just gonna get out and say it. I gotta get it off my chest. I moved out of New York City and I moved to New Jersey this week. Thank you. Thank you. It's actually the 4th place that I've lived in the past year, which sounds like it should be this incredible burden, but we've evolved. We have a lot fewer physical limitations that keep us tethered to a single location. Cable. Right? I cut cable years ago, and that means I can get up and move and have access to the same experience and data wherever I find myself. We're, post-pandemic, we're much more mobile and agile, right? We have remote work, hybrid work, hot desks. We need technology that reflects that mobility. What happened to cable is happening in the trader voice market as we speak. Physical lines, old hardware, it's expensive, and it limits your connectivity and mobility. Cloud9's cloud-based software, which means you can spin up 10x the number of connections that you would with better voice quality and data. It means you can move to 4 different places in a year or 4 different desks and have everything you need at your fingertips. I think the next session is gonna touch on some of those topics. So it is my pleasure to introduce our very own Gary Godshaw to the stage with Ali Villagra from JP Morgan and John Courtney from Maverick Capital. Thanks, guys.
Hello, everybody. Symphony Innovate. My name is Gary Godshaw, CRO at Symphony. I am pleased to be joined on stage by my friends and clients, Ali Villagra and John Courtney. Thanks for joining, guys. And for the next 90 minutes or so, we're going to take you on a journey. Can you hear that in the back? No, we will not get in the way of cocktails.
Hey, Gary, sorry, I just have to interrupt for a second. We're like talking about, can you hear me? We're talking about the future of digital finance, and you got
my clipboard?
You got
Well, I don't do this a lot. I don't have fancy portfolios, but this will have to work. So thanks, everybody, for being here. Really excited to have this wrap-up panel and actually hear from some of our clients and fill the room in on some of the progress we've been making on some of the innovations that you've seen here today. To start, Ali is familiar, I think, to many of the folks in the room. We were on the stage last year together, so welcome back, Ali.
Thank you.
John Courtney, who's been in the room but in the audience in the past, is joining us from Maverick Capital. Maverick's been a client of Symphony for a long time, but you want to fill folks in on why I asked you to come up on stage this year? They can't hear you.
Hello?
Oh, there we go.
There we go. It's nice to be the newbie. As I walked out here, it feels like I'm on my first podcast. But I'm here to basically go through. We rolled out Cloud9 earlier this year, so we're just here to share some of our experience on how that worked out for us and some of the benefits of the product.
Well, we're going to get to Cloud9 and talk a little bit about voice. But first, we want to talk a little bit of some innovation and some things that we're doing on the Symphony side that Ali and I actually hinted at a bit last year. Ali, last year we were here up on stage, and you were talking a little bit about consumer tech and how that has sort of laid out the playbook for financial services. Actually, go back. Back one slide. We're not ready yet. All right, stay here. Talked about consumer tech and how that's really sort of given us the playbook for tech and financial services. really understanding the user, focusing on that user experience. Now you're at a new firm, you're in a new role. Curious, has your perspective changed at all, and do you think the industry's made progress?
I don't know that my perspective has necessarily changed going from one sell-side shop to another. I will say, in the period when I was gardening in my garden leave, that the ante was up substantially for communication on non-secure compliant platforms, as we've heard from several of the guests today. So I think that really created an imperative to use product like Symphony, for sure. But yes, I mean, whether you're talking about regulatory issues or you're talking about COVID and the kind of change that created and has accelerated, we are making progress and continue to make progress.
So I want to focus a bit on connectivity. That'll be a theme of the conversation here. Last year when we were up on stage, we sort of hinted at this a bit, and we actually have a reveal that we want to do here in a second. But before we ask our mystery guest to play the video of that reveal, last year we were talking about connection requests on Symphony. Cue the slides, please. So one thing we've been really focused on, as many of our customers know, is really creating connectivity and finding the connection pairs for the parts of our community that are trying to find each other. So we've learned a lot. We know that operations, we know prime brokerage connectivity, research connectivity. These are all big value drivers of bringing folks onto the network and really stimulating a lot of the external usage that we're seeing. On the left side, you can see these are just focused. This is just looking at buy-side to sell-side connection pairs created on the platform over the course of, this is just year to date. So you can see, I think Brad mentioned it in his keynote, 150, 160% growth in those new connection pairs getting created. Like, we know these users are trying to find each other. On the right-hand side, and this is what Ali and I were talking about a bit last year, and that is this concept of the connection requests. So if folks are aware, on Symphony today, the primary way that folks are connected externally, connection request sent, accepted, and that unlocks the channel. And so this shows that back in January, the average time between connection requests sent and accepted was 8.5 days. That's now down to about a quarter of a day. So, Ali, I'm expecting a big round of applause. That's only like 6 hours. We're doing great, right?
Look, I applaud you for the curve. It's definitely going in the right direction, but I think particularly those of us who've grown up in the markets business will know, you cannot measure in days, or even quarters of days or fractions of days. We have become exceptionally well-adjusted to instant gratification. Social media has taught us well. It is no longer acceptable to wait. You can't. If I want to talk to John, I want to talk to him now.
I mean, he could be in London. I could get on a plane and probably talk to him about 6. I could go knock on his office door, right?
Yeah, bottom line, the standard is instant, and that is the standard that we need to achieve.
All right, so now we are going to roll a video, and special guest who we're hoping could join us from Baltimore today, but was kind enough to send in this clip. So let's go ahead and run it.
Hello, Symphony Innovate. I'm Mark Wyatt, head of global trading at T. Rowe Price. I'm sorry I couldn't join Gary, Ali, and John on stage in New York today, but I wanted to share some news with the Symphony community. A few weeks back, Ali and I were talking about ways our firms could do more together and areas we can improve workflows across our teams. While data showed that our teams were finding each other and connecting more on Symphony, we both viewed connection requests as unnecessary friction for our users. If I need someone right now, I'm not going to send a request, wait, and then engage. And I'll always want my desk to have access to the people and data they need when they need it. So we decided to get rid of the barrier and open up the communication channels. Last week, with the help of the Symphony team, we successfully connected the global trading organization at T. Rowe Price with our global markets counterparties at JP Morgan. I'm proud to say in total, 200,000 new connections were created. I think it's a great first step, and I want to applaud JP Morgan for taking the lead. This concept of frictionless connectivity is something both our firms believe can unlock significant value for the market, and we look forward to expanding this effort with other firms. Now I'll turn it back to the team in New York, who can tell you more about what we're doing.
We did a thing, Allie.
We did. We got it done.
So what does that mean? So looking at these numbers, October is going to be a very good month for buy-side to sell-side new connections created.
Yes, it
because
is.
We blew through 100,000, we just passed 200,000. So, so what does that mean sort of in the moment for that, that T-row trader versus looking at somebody and sending their request and waiting, they can see green dot, yellow dot.
Yeah, it's instant. That's what we're looking for, that's the expectation, and that's what we've delivered.
Well, now we're gonna move on to other types of connections, way faster than they used to be. But on the voice side, John, we just heard from Mark, 200,000 connections were created on Symphony at the push of a button. Yep. I think I'll take the under on the number of new Cloud9 directs you were able to set up.
That would be a safe bet.
And I know that you've connected in with your equity traders at JP a couple of weeks ago. But take us back to sort of the decision to go to digital voice. What was appealing about it, and why did you make the move?
Yeah, so we were able to replace a legacy technology that was expensive and slow with a low-cost cloud solution that was easy for us to manage and allowed us to extend that trader voice network to any satellite office, our home office if needed. And the great thing about it, over the last few days talking to Allie, she's been mentioned many times about the network effect, right? And the fact that now that we're part of that, C9, community, we're able to spin up voice connections, to any desk within that community within minutes, right? That's compared to a typical connection via legacy network. We still had a handful of connections that we needed to put on that legacy network. I can tell you right now, some of those connections took 30 to 45 days, with the longest one I think taking 53. So, living in a world where it takes 53 days, Cloud9 has now got that down to 15 or 20 minutes.
Yeah, when we caught up a couple of weeks ago, I think the term we sort of bantered around was like a new sort of connection frontier, right? It's one thing to replace the current ring down or direct that you have with a counterparty, but you were talking about how you used to trade the overnight desk.
Correct.
And that you wouldn't sort of consider. Well, go ahead.
Yeah, no, sorry to jump in there. So yeah, historically they were expensive, right? The sell side generally pays for the line. Historically, to JP Morgan, we've always had two connections, one to the US, one to London. Now that we have this low cost, or essentially no incremental cost, I can envision, within the next 12 months, us having connections to cash equities, ECM, Delta One, prime brokerage groups within New York, And as you mentioned, yeah, I traded Asia for 5 years, Gone are the days where, a PM calls me up and says, great, I want to initiate a position in Singapore. But now I can have, an existing connection to every single desk across the region, which, quickly allows me to jump on the line. I don't have to worry about, okay, great, who do I need to contact? Now it's more focused on, hey, what's the nuance of this local market? And, how do I work with my JP Morgan trader in, Singapore, to get that trade done?
So, Allie, you're also a Cloud9 user.
I am. It's the only telephone I have other than my cell phone.
And you and I have a direct.
Yes,
right?
we do.
Which
we have fun with.
We do have, exactly. And maybe it's like a once a week thing, but
Bing.
Would there be any world that JP Morgan or Symphony would be paying for you to have a direct with me?
No.
No offense to
not
myself.
in this environment. I assure you.
Right,
no budget for that.
So sort of from a non-trader perspective, because also we don't trade at Symphony, right? But within a week of having Cloud9, we rolled it out to the entire commercial org because we needed it, right? We're in multiple offices. We're even in the same office on different floors or down the hall. But from a non-trading perspective, like where do you see sort of those use cases? What has your experience been?
Yeah, look, I have the turret, I have the software, and I use them both, as you know, to harass you at my leisure. But beyond that use case, look, my whole management team has it. It was one of the first things I did. We've definitely lived in an era of being tied to Zoom or tied to chat, and there's really something lost in the human connectivity that this has brought back for us. So I know it's traditionally this is a trader product, but there's no reason that, that anyone can't use it.
And I guess question for either of you, but just voice in general, right? Allie, you sort of alluded to, we're living in for the non-traders, blocks of 30-minute Zooms, right, and lots of chat and channels. Like, do you think we lost voice at some point, over the last couple of years, and sort of getting it back, having it back now or being on a platform like Cloud9, what do you think you sort of gained from that?
I mean, voice is in our DNA as traders, right? So I think we had an opposite experience for most of the world. When COVID hit, we were trying to use voice as much as we can, right? We don't want a situation where we just assume somebody on the desk knows something, right? So we went from never using a hoot line to using one every single day, and everything that was, any type of conversation went over the entire team so the entire team could hear it. So, like I said, we're heavy users of it. I know that's probably very different from the hundreds or tens of Zoom meetings that's on everybody's calendar these days, but for the most part, we think it's an essential part of our daily workflow.
We've been talking about sort of user experience and kind of bilateral connectivity, value unlock, but there's a data component here as well, right? And I know, Ali, you and I caught up a couple of weeks ago. One of the things you mentioned was that one of the biggest barriers to entry as far as innovation, particularly in the OTC markets, is the sort of loss of voice data, all this voice that's happening. How does digital voice sort of unlock, sort of potential for the future? Where do you sort of see, I guess one, could you explain a bit sort of what you mean by that, and also where you think it's going?
I think you have to go back a little bit to the days, back in the day when everything was just done via voice. We were just talking about back in the day. Everything was done via voice, and then we sort of migrated to chat. And I think what teams like mine understood with the innovation, with the movement to chat, is that now you had a record, right? Now you had all of this data, and it's unstructured data, and it's not easy to work with, but it is an asset nonetheless that was created with the movement from voice to chat. And I think that we've lived in chat for a very long time because we have that data, because there's so many things that you can do with that data, and there's probably been a reticence, to go to voice because you don't want to give that up. Now for the first time you have both the benefit of the human connection, the actual voice call, but you also have the data asset that you can do, an incredible amount with to do a better job of servicing our clients. So, I think this is the first time we have the opportunity to combine both the data asset and the human element. It's really powerful.
So could you touch on a bit of where the kind of, because I think what we're getting at is in the sort of encouraging everyone to get on, so much has been invested in the NLP space and mining the text, right, and being able to extract, intelligence out of the text communications. In fact, you hear, okay, you can talk over here, but make sure you put it in the chat, right, because we need to have sort of that record, that searchable record. I guess one, how good is it? And who's the best at it? Like, what are some of the best sort of use cases and things that you've seen? And then two, as far as leveraging the investment in that sort of text to, extracting intelligence out of text, how easy is it to sort of leverage that, once you can start going from voice to text?
Well, I think particularly when you've been living in the OTC space where lots still does happen over voice trading, one of the obvious use cases that arises for a trading desk is like, well, what's my hit ratio? Like how am I doing from a market share perspective? Imagine you just don't know. You don't know because this stuff is going, the information is going out into the ether. But when you have a record, when you have the digital asset, you can then begin to understand, like, these are the trades I hit, these are the trades I missed, and that's, incredibly valuable information that it's kind of shocking to think we don't have at our fingertips. Where you go beyond that, once you have the actual data asset or the text of the chat and the ability to apply NLP to it and do interesting things that would allow a salesperson to cover an account more effectively, more efficiently. Now you're introducing, definitely new technologies that are on the cusp of taking off. sometimes in AI they'll refer to an AI winter where things it doesn't look like anything's happening, it's underground, and then all of a sudden, you pop up and you're like, wow, the world has changed. That's happening very much right now in the NLP space with large language models that are being open sourced and will increasingly become available to us to turn what is, like a dump of raw data into really powerful efficiencies.
So now let's look at the flip side of that for a second. John, I'll be curious for your view as well, which is the sort of privacy side of it, right?
Yeah.
We're being monitored everywhere, and what's being used with that. I guess, there's a creepiness factor, right? Like in our personal lives, it's like we know that, you're searching here, or
Yeah, but you like Google, right? Like you like it.
I do like targeted ads, generally speaking. Better than spam, right?
I know, but you like the product that you get as a result.
I do.
That.
Yeah, generally I do.
Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to validate.
But
yeah, I mean, we live in a world where my Alexa knows everything about me, right? It's it's recording and digitizing a lot of that information, right? So if my sales trader has a tool in which will digitize our voice, and they're able to use it as a tool to say, hey, 3 months ago, me and you had a conversation, you had interest on this name, we're about to put together a block, I just want to give you a heads up. We love that call, right? That's a call where, if the block goes up and I missed it, it's my fault. But like I said, when you have tools that can leverage the digital voice now and give them more tools so they can cover us and, essentially, be a better sales trader for us at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Now I want to go to where we started the day. So Alexandra Boyle started the day by talking about email, right? John, in our conversation a couple of weeks ago, you made a comment to me, something like, I had 2,800 emails yesterday that were, unread, right? Like, if I could give you one wish, and this is a little bit of a leading question because we have been talking about what we think is the solution here, but if I could give you one wish, what are some of the workflows that you think you could get out of email?
Yes, that's easy. So yes, we on the buy side, we just get bombarded with emails, right? If anything, if I could just take market commentary and content and take it out of my inbox and put it onto a Twitter-like feed that is just easier to digest. One, right, going back to, we'd love to see tools that are available in our consumer life, right? I want to be able to subscribe to users or content from the sell side that I find interesting, right? Versus the current model of, we're just going to flood John's inbox with as much information as possible and force him to drink from the fire hose. So like moving towards a platform, if Symphony is going to be that platform where I can search effectively, right? Searching email has never been graceful, right? It's horrific. Having the ability to filter based on cash tags, right? So a lot of that ability, I would love to see down the road.
Searching for content on your email, that's not a good workflow?
Yeah, no.
Ali, we've talked a little bit about this and where we think we can sort of create a good user experience, particularly for those buy-side customers. Do you want to talk a little bit about just sort of standardization? I think we've talked a bit about research content as being kind of an easy one where, there's already standards, there's already tags, but then maybe we could just talk about that, and then what are some of the harder ones that, folks would be interested in?
I've been talking about this for many, many, many years now, and it's been interesting to see the progression. I think the first time I was on stage at Symphony Innovate, I was talking about exactly this, so it's interesting to see where it's gone. It's an evolving space. Research is kind of a relatively low-hanging fruit, if you will, because analysts tag their content, their systems to tag their content, and so, having a filter on the other side so that there's less noise for the client is relatively easy. Market commentary is another space where there is no tagging, there's no metadata at all. The market would benefit enormously from standards in this space that would help clients be able to filter and just have less fire hose. And then you go all the way into voice data, right? Where now you have an asset that's completely free-form, the hardest, particularly in the OTC space, and it will be, in some ways, the most valuable and the most difficult to achieve. But as I said earlier, the technology here is advancing at a very rapid pace, and it will be great for us all when we're not being asked to consume so much all at the same time.
Well, on that topic, I would encourage our buy-side customers who are listening. We've done several buy-side roundtables over the last several months specifically on this topic. We are engaged, specifically with firms like JP Morgan and others on what we think is a pretty simple solution there. So, encourage you to reach out. We'd love to get feedback, and hopefully this is something that we can, reveal sometime early next year. So, with that, I think we'll wrap up this last session. We'll exit, and I'll invite Alexandra Boyle up to say a few closing words. So thanks, everybody. Do you need a clipboard?
Clipboard. Haven't seen one of those in years.